What is a flapper? Chickasha Daily Express, April 21st, 1922. Since the flapper has become of general interest, let us consider flappers. And since, as Socrates taught, the first requisite of philosophical discussion is to define terms, let us consider definitions. What then is a flapper? A newspaper questionnaire has brought forth these suggestions. Flapper is the modern term for a pretty young girl. A flapper is a cute, frivolous girl in the latest clothes. A flapper is a frivolous young person whose galoshes flap as she walks. I should think the term would be applied not to our attractive young girls, but to the old ones who are trying to look young. A flapper is a cute young thing with short skirts, bobbed hair, and sport Oxfords. A flapper is a girl making herself as attractive and cute-looking as possible so she can catch a beau. And so on without really getting anywhere. Socrates may have been justified in his frenzied quest for definitions, because in his day there were no dictionaries. A lexicon is always a shortcut to knowledge. Looking the word up in the century, we find this explicit and succinct statement. Flapper, a young bird when first trying its wings, especially a wild duck when it cannot fly. What more could anyone ask? And don't despair of the poor little flapper. Her feathers grow and her wings strengthen, and the poor little duck does learn to fly after all, you know. And eventually we find her a staid mother, worrying about a new generation of flappers. Reforming the Flapper. The Birmingham Age Herald, February 20th, 1922. Reprinted from the Montgomery Advertiser. What can we do to protect our boys from the depredations of the flapper? Was a question seriously discussed at a meeting held Thursday at the home of Mrs. Otto Kahn on Fifth Avenue, New York, in the interest of the Girls Protective League. The object of the league is to protect the old-fashioned girl and old-fashioned standards of virtue. But it quickly developed into a discussion of protecting the boys from the young vamps. I believe, said one speaker with an official position, the way to solve the problem of the young people today is to approach them through the boys. If the boys agree to boycott the girl who has violated the social code, she will soon mend her ways. I have asked the boys why they did not do this, and they always say that they are afraid the girls will not dance with them if they are too prim and old-fashioned. But it is nevertheless the boys who hold the power in their hands. The boy's social code of conduct is very much higher than the modern girls, and he is very much shocked by the way the girls act. We are a bit skeptical of the lady's premises, and we are unconvinced by her arguments. Her plan would shift a large responsibility upon the boys. We doubt their ability and inclination to meet it. Her plan, undoubtedly, would be effective if she could get organized action on the part of the boys for the boycott of the flappers. But getting united action from the boys is an impossibility. Some renegades, and we fear that their numbers would be large, would be certain to flirt and gamble with the flappers. The flapper has the usual feminine instinct. She knows whether the boys like her ways or not. The boys are not equal to the task of reforming the flapper. That needed job is the job for parents. If the boys thought she needed reforming, the flapper would cease to be. Another speaker at this same meeting said, and doubtless truly, in spite of appearances, that it was the manners and not the morals of the flapper that needed reforming. Most of her troubles were on the outside. While this was a fact, it was nevertheless true that the manners of her brother are much more conservative, and it is through her brother that we must approach her, said a speaker at the meeting. The boys are doubtless able to take care of themselves, but the job of reforming the flapper is beyond them. Flappers Protective Society organized for real protection. The Kenosha Telegraph Courier, May 11th, 1922. Here are the planks in the platform of the Flappers Protective Society, the flapper principles that must be protected. Bobbed hair, rolled socks, independence, smoking in public, no shifter language, no leaning vine tactics, snuggle parties if desired, liberalism combined with propriety, clothes worn in conformity with individual taste. A fig for convention and a fig for dress, if one cares. That's the motto under which Chicago flappers have banded together into the country's first Flappers Protective Society. Miss Margaret Purcell is president of the Chicago Local, which is laying plans for national representation in the principal cities for the purpose of mutual protection of flapper principles. Immediately after forming and getting underway their flapper organization, Miss Purcell and her flapper compatriots started hot and heavy after dissenting opinion launched from the city's numerous Sunday pulpits against them. They called on Mayor Thompson in a body and wrote letters to their congressmen demanding that antagonistic flapper propaganda be stopped. "We're neither fools nor young indiscreets," says Miss Purcell, who besides being flapper president also holds title to the honor of flippant flapper, the highest flapper recognition. "These silly people who are denouncing us are making a big mistake. They fail to comprehend that this is a new day and age, and that young girls are merely trying a means to express themselves in a decent, sane manner in keeping with the times. And right now, I want to define a flapper. Lots of grown-ups think she is a girl with plenty of speed and some control, but that isn't so. A flapper is just a 20th century woman who is honorable and courageous. She prefers doing what she does do in the open, and not behind people's backs. We stand, all of us, for moral living, but we also think that many of the present-day conventions are obsolete and should be discarded. Just now, Miss Purcell and her cohorts are angry. We've been lied and lied about, they say, so please tell the world that we're out in earnest this time, and mean to show it." All of the 24 members of the society in Chicago agree with Miss Purcell. They take the organization and intent of their society seriously, and are pushing vigorously to extend it to other cities. The origin and rise of the flapper. The New York Tribune, July 23, 1922. The patient public has been enlightened as to the habits of the flapper, but no one has attempted to explain whence came this new genus. Did the flapper just grow to blossom in 1922? Banish the thought. The flapper has been with us for more than 3 centuries, according to philologists. In 1726, history first makes definite mention of the flapper. Swift, in his Gulliver's Travels, says, "The absent-minded philosopher of Laputa always kept a flapper in the family, whose duty was to strike gently the mouth of him to whom the speaker addressed himself. The flapper was then something to arouse memory. It was in this sense that Lord Chesterfield, in the year 1747, wrote in a letter, 'I write you by way of a flapper, to put you in mind of yourself.' Until 1852 did the flapper serve as a meek daily reminder. A writer in Blackwood's magazine expressed the opinion of that day in his remark, 'It is an advantage to have a flapper about us to remind us of our faults.' But the vicissitudes of time brought a change to flapperdom. A quarter of a century later found the flapper an object used to shoo away flies. Always with looseness as a characteristic, soon many things which were noticeably flat and loose began to be spoken of as flappers. Even the long shoes worn by Negro minstrels earned the title. There is no missing link in the evolution of the flapper. In 1888, the term was applied to a young duck which tried to fly. Here, evidently, is the maternal grandmother of the would-be high-flying flapper of today and of tonight. At the beginning of the 19th century, more particular instincts of the flapper began to be developed. Any loose part of an animal which flapped was a flapper. In the Museum of Natural History, the flapper of a porpoise on exhibition is shown to remind flappers whence they sprang. When, several years later, a man accosted a friend and said heartily, "Give us your flapper, old man," he was not asking him for his lady fair. He was merely offering to shake hands. The flapper did double duty for a while, and took on the work of an intransitive verb too. To flapper meant to walk with a loose flapping motion. It also meant to quiver and to flutter, which can all be noted in the flapper today. And of course, it is a verb of the active voice. So active that it brings before us the 20th century flapper, the 1922 8-cylinder 2-earring model. The flapper's versatility is due to her experiences in so many forms of life. Her walk and the loose waist are second nature from the days she was part of the porpoise. She still does duty as a daily reminder. She can still chase away flies, birds, and others who prey, even gift-bearing animals. The flat shoes, erstwhile pride of minstrels, are even condoned, as is likewise the boyish grip of the flapper that only she can give. It's all part of her original nature, combined with the forces of her environment. She is the evolution of a type which has been in the making 300 years.